A federal jury this week found that Starbucks discriminated against a white manager who was fired amid an uproar over the company's treatment of black customers at a store in Philadelphia 5 years ago. The ex-manager, Shannon Phillips, received $25.6 million in damages after a 6-day trial, Phillips' attorneys previously told ABC News. The resolution of a lawsuit against one of the nation's largest employers drew attention to the standard for proving discrimination, as well as the federal protection against bias afforded to all racial groups, regardless of whether they've faced historical marginalization, experts told ABC News. Experts added that the jury appears to have been persuaded in part by the argument that Phillips was fired as part of Starbucks' public relations effort in response to racial justice backlash, which may have implications for how corporations act in such circumstances. Starbucks did not respond immediately to ABC News' request for comment. In court documents, the company denied any discrimination claims, claiming that Phillips was disciplined for legitimate non-discriminatory, non-retaliatory reasons. According to legal experts, here's what you need to know about the Starbucks discrimination case and its implications. Why did the jury conclude that race was a factor in the termination of the Starbucks employee? Don Robinson and Rashan Nelson were arrested in 2018 at a Starbucks in the Philadelphia area after an employee called 911 and accused them of trespassing because they had not made a purchase. Later, the two men reached a private settlement with Starbucks and the city of Philadelphia, which agreed to pay each of the men $1 and create a $200,000 fund for young entrepreneurs. Phillips, a regional director at the time who had been with the company for nearly 13 years, was fired less than a month after the incident. Phillips claimed in an initial lawsuit filed in 2019 that she was not at the store that day or involved in the events leading up to the arrests, instead alleging that her race played a determinative role. According to Phillips' attorney, a key piece of evidence in the case was testimony from a black district manager who stated that he believed race played a role in Starbucks' decision to fire Phillips and allow him to remain with the company. Legal experts agreed with that assessment, saying that the plaintiff's ability to point to disparate treatment of a relevant employee was critical to the jury's finding of discrimination. My understanding is that in these cases, what you need is a comparative, Rick Rossane, a professor of employee discrimination law at the City University of New York Law School, told ABC News. Here you have a Starbucks manager giving that kind of testimony. Starbucks disputed this account of its actions in court documents, claiming that Phillips was disciplined due to poor performance. According to the company, Phillips appeared overwhelmed, frozen, and lacked awareness of how critical the situation was for Starbucks and its partners. According to the experts, Phillips appeared to persuade the jury further with her explanation for the alleged mistreatment, describing her firing as part of the company's effort to minimize the public relations fallout from the arrests. Evidence points to Starbucks taking action against an employee in order to address public opinion rather than really addressing who was involved in making that decision, Rissa Lieberwitz, a labor and employment law professor at Cornell University's School of Industrial and Labor Relations, told ABC News. According to legal experts, Phillips' case is unusual because the majority of cases alleging a violation of federal discrimination law on the basis of race involve non-white people. They added that legal precedent as high as the Supreme Court confirms that the measure at issue, Title V of the Civil Rights Act, protects white workers who face discrimination. Any allegation of race discrimination, whether against a white employee, a black employee, or another racial group, is covered by anti-discrimination law, Lieberwitz said. While white discrimination lawsuits are uncommon, white plaintiffs have proven to be more likely to succeed than non-white plaintiffs when federal judges adjudicate their racial discrimination claims, according to Wendy Green, a professor of anti-discrimination law at Drexel University Law School and the director of the Center for Law, Policy, and Social Action. What many people find surprising is that federal civil rights laws that were originally intended to address the long-standing systemic racial segregation, exclusion, and discrimination endured by people who identify as non-white are now appearing to be more effective at redressing racial discrimination against people who identify as white, Green told ABC News. What are the ramifications of Starbucks' discrimination finding in this case? According to experts, the decision in this case could increase scrutiny of large corporations in their treatment of workers who belong to protected groups against discrimination, as well as complicate efforts to discipline workers charged with improving a company's performance on racial justice issues. We are in an era where people are scrutinizing major corporations' decisions, Rothstein said. Meanwhile, Green stated that the decision may make it more difficult for companies to supervise workers involved in the implementation of racial justice initiatives because companies that discipline such employees may be accused of racial discrimination. Management must strike a balance between the need to create a racial discrimination-free workplace and a commitment to ensure workplaces are free of racial exclusion and subordination, which are frequently couched as acts of racial discrimination against white employees in favor of non-white people, according to Green. The large monetary award in the Starbucks case may discourage employers from disciplining or terminating employees they believe are not effectively handling discrimination complaints, she added.